Where are all my multidisciplinary baddies at? If you're anything like how I was when applying to college, you have a lot of interests. Now, you may have heard that to stand out at Ivy Leagues and other top colleges, you need to have an application spike or theme. But because you are so passionate about many different areas of interest, now you're worried, are your admissions chances cooked? I'm gonna spoil this whole video right now and tell you you're not cooked. You can absolutely get into a top school even if you have many different interests. And how do I know this? Because I did it and I got into every school that I applied to. What's up, y'all? My name is Dylan Nellis. I am the founder and college admissions coach at NextGen Admit. I am a graduate of Stanford University, and I help high-achieving students just like you create standout applications that get into their dream schools. So you have come to the right place, because we're gonna be talking about how to craft an application spike even if you are well-rounded, even if you think you are average or multidisciplinary. Now, I'm gonna give you something that's super, super helpful when figuring out your application spike. I created a really cool tool that will analyze your interests, your experiences, your activities, your background, and it will give you your personalized application spike based on all those things. It's even gonna give you recommendations of what you can do to strengthen your spike in your extracurriculars and in your application, and I'm giving this away totally for free. You can try it out at nextgenadmit.com/spike. I'm really excited about this. I tried it with my own interests when I was in high school and was floored by the results because it was so accurate to me and who I was, and how I eventually did end up strategizing my application to get into all of my schools. So give it a try and let me know what you think in the comments, okay? I'm curious. So that tool is gonna do it for you instantly, but in this video, I'm gonna talk a little bit more about how you can do it yourself as well. First, let's talk about what a college application spike even is and why it matters. So why are spiky students favored in college admissions than well-rounded students? Colleges want to build a well-rounded class of students who are each spiky in their own respective field. Rather than having a bunch of students who are okay at a bunch of different things, they would rather have all of the strongest students in their respective areas, because that makes them as a university look better. So a spike highlights depth over breadth. They want to see that you have identified what makes you light up, what gets you really excited, and that you have done everything you can to submerge yourself into that area of interest. They want to see that you've gone above and beyond, not just taking a class in your high school, but maybe starting your own club or doing things out of school. Joining an organization, starting an organization, joining a summer program to learn more and more about that field. Or it could be starting your own projects or reading books in your free time. Having a long-term vision and a concentrated area of focus is a lot more appealing to colleges than a student who is scattered and has no idea what they're trying to do, because colleges want to see what unique and specific things you're gonna bring to their campus. So there are students that have a hard spike, and there are some students that have a soft spike. So a hard spike is one where you're really, really focused on one specific area, and that is so evidently clear in your application. You have a demonstrated excellence in a certain area of expertise in a very clear and measurable way. So that might look like winning a national competition in your field, or doing research and publishing a paper on a very niche topic. Students with a hard spike usually have most of their extracurricular activities related to that specific field. But this is not to say you have to do that. This is not to say that you have to have all of your activities be about one specific thing, or all of your essays talk about one specific area of study. Because we know that as human beings, you probably have multiple interests and you've tried out different things. That is valuable. Having multiple interests is a good thing, so I do not want you to think that because you didn't just do one thing your whole entire high school career, that is bad. Because it's not. The trick that you want to do is create a soft spike. So there's still a through line that's connecting each of your interests and your activities together. That way you don't sound really scattered or like you lack direction to the college admissions officers. So for a well-rounded student, what you want to do is find ways to connect your interests. How can you combine them? Think about how the skills from one area transfer to another area. You really want to analyze all of your activities and figure out what are the patterns that are coming up, what are the themes, and then ultimately, how does that convey a core part of understanding who you are? your values, and your identity. And then that is the personal narrative that you want to strongly convey in your college applications. So I understand if that sounded confusing, but in this video, I'm going to go in depth into how you can actually achieve this and how you can create a spike for your college applications. The first thing you want to do is audit your current activities. Make a list, make a resume, whatever it is, have it in front of you where you can see all the things that you have done. And yeah, while that can be specific extracurricular opportunities, it can also be your personal projects or things that you do on your free time. I want you to really look at how you spend your time and see which of those things really light you up. Which of those things really energizes you? What do you want to continue doing? This will help you start to recognize patterns and themes. They will start to emerge from the different things that you do. And you'll start to realize, oh wait, the way that I do this activity is actually very similar to the way that I do this activity, even though they are in different areas of interest. So I want you to ask yourself, do your activities share a common goal? Or are there certain communities you see yourself interacting in most? Or are there certain skill sets that you keep using in your different interests? For example, you might realize like, oh, in all of these things that I do, I'm building with my hands. You know, maybe I'm doing ceramics, but I'm also building robotics. All of these things are with my hands. I really like tactile learning and building. Or maybe the common through line is storytelling. Maybe you write in your school's newspaper, but then you also like to do film. Maybe you're in an environmental science club, but maybe your role is focused on documenting the stories of people who have experienced the effects of wildfires or floods or food injustice. Now, when you're looking at your activities, you're like, oh wait, I'm doing storytelling in all the things that I do. So I want you to figure out what is that theme for you? What is that through line that connects it all together? Next, you want to find your strategic narrative angle. I'm gonna say something super important and I really need you to listen, okay? When you choose your major, you need to know why. Why are you choosing that major? Why are you interested in it? If you cannot answer that question, you're gonna have a really, really hard time writing your college essays. If I had a nickel for every time I've asked a student, oh, so why are you interested in that major? And they came at me with like a blank face and had no idea what to say, I would have a lot of nickels. What were the catalyst moments for you that showed you that biology is something you wanted to continue with? What subfield within biology really excites you? Is it neuroscience, public health, genetics, environmental biology? And most importantly, what about the actual field draws you to it? Why do you like this field over all the other ones? You have to be able to clearly articulate this if you want to craft a really good college application. Because there are so many students who are also applying as bio majors, and you know what? In their Why Us essays, where colleges ask, why do you want to go to this college? Or in their why major essays, where colleges ask, why do you want to major in this field of study? Everyone says the same thing. You cannot stay surface level. You know, a lot of students will say, well, I love biology because I want to be able to help people. I want to be able to save lives. I want to be able to help people with their health. Great, so does everybody else. And I love that for you. I really do. But I need you to figure out more deeply what that interest is and why it touches you so much. Like, I want to hit into the core of your identity. Where does this come from? That takes me to the formula. The formula of how to connect your seemingly unrelated interests. The formula to find your spike is a personal interest plus a supportive skill plus your personal motivation. Now, what the heck am I talking about? Let me give you an example. Let's say you're somebody who's really into writing stories and helping your local community. One summer, you volunteer at a community garden in a food desert, and you learn and realize how families from a certain socioeconomic background struggle to access fresh and nutritious food. This personal experience, getting to interact with those people and talk with others to learn about this issue, inspires you to write a storytelling blog that highlights the food injustice in your community. Maybe you interview families, you do some research on the topic, you do some explainer posts about local food systems and resources. Now, let's use the formula to figure out what your personal narrative is. your primary interest is social impact and food justice. The supportive skill is writing and storytelling. And then your motivation is rooted in your lived experience while you were volunteering at the community garden. Those three parts, when combined, make a really powerful narrative that you can so easily use in your college essays, and that will connect your interests together and sharpen your spike. Because here you're not just being like, yeah, this is my interest. There is very clear evidence as to why you are interested in it, where that came from your personal experience, and then what skills you have and how you've applied those skills to that interest. And so now you're very, very clearly demonstrating your intellectual curiosity, but also your capability to succeed. And those two things are exactly what the admissions officers are looking for. Again, I really want to recommend you try that application spike generator. It's completely free because it's also going to give you really strong ways where you can strengthen your own personal narrative. Now, let's talk about how to align your extracurriculars to your personal narrative and your application spike. So I'm going to give advice for both the younger students who have time to keep developing their extracurriculars and for the students who are already seniors or juniors and you're like, I need to just do my college applications. If you are younger and you have that time to develop your extracurriculars, once you figure out what that through line is between your interests and your skills and your experiences, you want to really hone in on the extracurriculars that amplify that. So maybe you participate in a summer program or do a passion project that is focused on that specific interest. You can also just prioritize your time better and really focus your time and energy on the extracurriculars that support your spike. So think about how can you get leadership roles in those activities and how can you scale your impact. Colleges prefer when you are really consistent and dedicated in a select few activities versus trying to do everything to look good on your college apps. Now, for my older students who are starting the application process, what I want you to do is think about how to frame your activities in the actual application. So your areas don't have to be all related to the same area of interest. That's okay, mine weren't. But the way that you frame them and you make connections can seriously make all the difference. Colleges are not just impressed by what you do, they're impressed by how well you understand and communicate the things that matter to you. So once you figure out what that spike is or what the through line is that connects all of them together, in your activities descriptions, you need to be really strategic about how you're writing those. So you may play up the parts that relate more to your intended major and play down the parts that don't relate as much. For example, if I want to be a business or a marketing major, but I was in a theater club and I was the historian of this theater club, then I would play up not the theater part, but the part of how I did marketing and branding for the club, how I understand how to attract an audience and to scale an organization. Those are skills that are related to business, so you want to identify the skills that are necessary or needed for your intended major, and then see where have I practiced those skills. Oh, I actually did these things in my other clubs, even though they seem unrelated. And then of course, in your college essays, how you articulate your narrative matters so much. My expertise lies in college essay storytelling, so if you want any help from me or want to get your essays reviewed by our team, just visit NextGen Admit right here. The way that you create a strong personal narrative is by identifying those core values that drive what you do. That's why I've been talking about like the why. Why do you do the things that you do? What were the experiences that sparked that interest? When you seriously self-reflect and do a deep level of introspection that you've never done before, you're gonna learn some pretty amazing things about yourself. This is why I love working with my students and coaching them, because they come out of the process as grown human beings rather than, yes, like sure, they get into their top schools and they get a bunch of merit scholarships, woohoo, but the deeper, more impactful thing is what they learn about themselves, because that is what's going to benefit you for the rest of your life. That is what I help my students do. Now let's talk a bit more in depth about creating a passion project. We've been talking about how to align the extracurriculars you currently have, but if you have time and the ability to do so, I highly recommend starting your own passion project, and specifically one that relates to your intended major. This is going to really be the icing on the cake and sharpen that application Spike. So a passion project is something that is self-led. You do it outside of school on your own. It is a project that you do to deepen your intellectual curiosity in a given area to create real, tangible impact on your community. So this could look like a research project, or starting an organization, or creating an app, or creating some sort of prototype, writing a book, or an educational program, or even starting your own business. This looks so good to colleges because they're seeing that you go above and beyond. You're not just gonna do the things that are offered at your school, you're going to take action and solve real problems in the world and seek out new knowledge and build new things. A passion project is wonderful because it serves as an example of the type of work that you're going to do at their university. So if you can clearly paint the picture to the colleges and be like, look, yeah, I'm pretty awesome, I'm gonna do all this stuff, and I'm gonna do even more projects like this at your school, that once again is gonna make the school look good. Colleges are a business. I say this time and time again. It's understanding how to play this game in a way that is authentic and true to you. Now you might be here like,
well, Dylan, what should I even do? What are some passion project ideas?
You'll be happy to know I got you. I also created a passion project idea generator that will analyze your interests, your extracurriculars, your intended major, and any problems that you want to solve or things that you care about in the world. And it will spit out for you 5 personalized passion project ideas and give you steps on what to do to actually implement them. I know I share a lot of free resources in my videos, and so you can just check out all the links in the description below. They're always there. For our next chapter, I want to talk about showcasing depth over breadth. I know I talked about like how to write the activities descriptions to showcase the skills that are going to relate to your intended major, but for this point, I wanted to focus on which activities do you even include on the Common Application or the UC application or wherever it is you're applying, and also what things you choose to talk about in your essays or on your application. So because you are strengthening your Spike, you really want to just focus in and prioritize and amplify the activities and the experiences from your life that have to do with your intended major, or, are semi-related or showcase the skills that you're going to use in your intended major. Depth is really, really important than breadth when it comes to college applications. So I want you to know that your goal should not be trying to do a million different volunteer hours here and there at random events and organizations. Colleges don't care that much that you did National Honor Society. Like, great, a lot of other people have done that too. What they care about is what were the actual things you were doing when you volunteered. You want to make sure that those things, those organizations, are related to your actual interests. And they want to see that you've done it for a long time period. You're committed to it. You're not just doing it for the resume boost. You're doing it because you genuinely care, and you genuinely care about the success of that organization, and you want to help it grow, and you want to create more impact and help the people who you're serving. So on your extracurriculars, really highlight those things and highlight that involvement. In your college essays, you also want to be strategic about which stories you're telling from your life. Now, a lot of students will ask me, should I be writing about my passion or my Spike in my Common App essay? My answer to that is, it depends, maybe. It honestly depends on you and what your story is, because ultimately, the personal statement is the main essay that's going to be sent to all of these different colleges, and the essay that really showcases who you truly are, what your values are, what your skills are, and what you intend to do with them. Now, I do think it is a really, really good idea. I see this done often, and it works, where a student writes about the passion project that they did. It's rooted less in, here's what I did, look at me, but more in, here's the personal anecdote, that personal experience we were talking about that started it all, and how I thought and I felt about that, and how it drew me to want to take action and build this project. And then in the end, how they grew from that, what they learned from it, and how they want to continue with that. I think that's a really nice structure that works very well with college applications, but it is not the only one, and you don't have to do that. You do not have to write about your major in your Common App personal statement. If you want to take a different route and talk about a specific personal challenge that you went through, but more importantly, how you grew from it, or do a cool thematic type of essay where you have different anecdotes that showcase different qualities that make you who you are, but are connected by a certain theme, that you can do as well. There's a lot of creativity that you can have in this process, and so it's just about your unique strategy. Now, I work with my students to figure out what that unique strategy is for them. So if you're interested in working one-on-one with me, you can visit nextgenadmit.com. Again, all links are in the description, and I would love to work with you to figure out your unique strategy step by step. Now I want to talk about choosing your major. So that is a strategic process in itself. You want to make sure that you are choosing a major that is clearly reflected in your activities and in your experiences. Colleges want to see that you have prepared for your intended major, and they want to see that you're actually interested in it. So if you choose something that does not relate at all to any of the things you did in high school, that doesn't look good to them, because they're like, what? That's random. Why were you doing all these other things in high school if you ultimately wanted to study this? A way that you can strengthen your spike is actually in your major selection. It also does tend to look better to choose a major or apply for a certain major when you go through the application process instead of applying as undecided. Because again, especially at top colleges, you don't want to come across as scattered or like you lack direction. This is not to say that what you choose for your major when applying is actually going to be your major in college, or is actually going to be the thing that you do post-college. Nobody is holding a gun to your head being like, you have to do this for the rest of your life. Things change. It's super normal. People change their majors all the time. I changed my major. I ended up designing my own major because I wanted a very custom educational plan. And post-college, people switch career paths all the time. That is so normal. It is normal to have many different interests and for those interests to change. At a lot of schools, you can change your major once you get into that school. And you do want to check the requirements on that though, because that might not be the case everywhere, especially if it's a program where they're like really tight about their 4-year plan and you get admitted to that specific program and it's a whole cohort-based thing. That's different. But a lot of times you don't have to actually declare your major until your sophomore year of college. So on your application, what you're doing is just showing them what you might be interested in studying. And so you definitely want to utilize that as a strategic point to make it relate to your spike. Lastly, I want to talk about how I did this and what my personal strategy was that got me into every school I applied to, and I ended up studying at Stanford University. I was interested in a lot of things: art, technology, theater, education, and I was really worried that I had too many interests. And so my strategy was finding ways to connect all of my interests and figure out what those themes and those patterns were, and then also combine them in different ways. I was also applying for colleges that had very specific programs related to art, technology, and business that like combined all of those, whereas another school emphasized the more technology side of it. So I had to make sure that I was being very strategic in the essays that I was submitting to each of those schools. Even though I did a lot of theater activities, I didn't include all of them on my common application because I knew I wasn't applying as a theater major. At the very top of my activities list, I made sure to highlight the ones that were related to STEM and technology and design. In my Common App essay, I wrote about a personal experience helping my grandfather who had dementia and Alzheimer's. And then I talked about a passion project of mine in which I designed an app that helped other families support their elderly loved ones. This way, I was able to combine design, because I was designing the user interface of the app, with technology, because obviously it's an app and that's tech, and it was weaved in with my personal story and experience. I also submitted art portfolios to a lot of colleges, and in some of them I included the user interface design of my app, and I also included a color pencil drawing that I did of my grandfather because I wanted to really connect that story and give an image to who he was, while also showcasing my artistic ability. Also, in one of my supplemental essays, I talked about my graphic design process, and you can see how I was using my right and my left brain in how I was designing that. Because graphic design is actually pretty technical, so I was using both art and technology because I was doing it digitally. And this worked out for me. This really did. And I was really happy about that I got into all of my schools and went to study at Stanford, because it showed me that it is possible. You can do this even if you have many different interests. Being a multidisciplinary person is not bad. In fact, I think it makes you better equipped to interact in this world, because now you have more perspectives to base things off of, and you can connect different ideas together, and that is really exciting. So I want you to know your experiences and your interests do hold value, and you can craft a strong college application even if you are a well-rounded student. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and also let me know how you found that spike generator. You can access it at nextgenadmit.com/spike. I really want to see what kind of things it created for you and whether you felt like that resonated with who you are and if it was helpful in strengthening your application. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, because I always post college application related content, and I am here to help you get into your dream schools. That's all from me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you soon.